right, what is up, everybody? It is Cody and John from NBC here today, and we are about a week past the 2025 draft, and we thought, what better topic is hotter in the news right now than Shedeur Sanders? And I think that we wanted to just kind of discuss it, talk about the impacts that he's going to have on the team. Will he even see the field? And how does that affect sports cards and all of the different things surrounding the Browns this year? So, without further ado, I'm going to toss it over to Cody. Cody, what do we want to talk about right now?
Yeah, so I think we should obviously talk about our guy Shedeur Sanders. I don't think it's either one of our guys, but it's the media's guy right now, Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns organization. I think what everyone's talking about, and I think we could take a couple minutes, is the elephant in the room. We have a first round potential quarterback. I think people were saying like in the top three picks, Shedeur was supposed to go, and this guy slid all the way to the fifth. So we've heard a lot of stuff through the media. So combing through all of that, what do you think is the reason we see Shedeur Sanders sliding from potentially top three pick to a fifth round pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things. I think that he right off the bat wasn't necessarily a surefire first round draft pick. I think that people were projecting him to potentially go in the second, maybe the third round, but definitely not a third day draft pick, being in the fifth round like he was drafted. So I think that part of it is probably, you know, just the personality himself. I know he's super confident, can come off a little bit cocky. I think that maybe there's a little bit of entitlement there just because he is prime time's son, Deion Sanders. And I think that the other part of it is Deion Sanders himself. You know, there's some baggage that comes along with being Deion Sanders' son. And I feel like it's almost like a package deal. When you get Shedeur, you also get Deion Sanders. And I just feel like teams did not want to deal with that. It would just kind of sidetrack the team from what they want to focus on, right? You can either focus on football or you can get caught up in the drama that comes along with the families and things like that. So I feel like that's part of the reason why he slid down. Now, do I agree with where he went in the draft? Probably not, because I think that the potential of that he has, like he has some good potential. He doesn't have a rocket arm. He's not the fastest guy, but he's a super accurate pocket passer who can make plays on the fly. So I feel like there is some upside with him that there definitely wasn't with some of the guys that were drafted before him.
Yeah, no, personally, I agree with everything you just said. I think Shador definitely is a package deal with a big personality as well as his father. I think most of his personality, honestly, comes when he's with his dad. I'm not exactly sure. I don't follow Shador on socials or anything like that. So, avoiding everything you just mentioned, I want to bring up a potential other, maybe heavier reasoning why Shador may have slid a little bit further from, at least from what I've gathered from the news, is that he did not do well with his interviews with teams. I heard that he was going through these tests during the interview process and he was like completely flopping. So from a football IQ perspective, it doesn't bode well. Now, I do know Shador, from what I understand, he was bombing some of these interviews on purpose so that he could try to get to a team that he desired, right? Because those early round picks are usually going to the worst teams in the league. And yeah, maybe you can kind of manipulate that in a certain way, but he went from a potential first round pick to a fifth round pick. And I think it's everything you just mentioned plus those interviews. Is he truly capable of coming in day one and being a starter for an NFL team? And I don't think people had the confidence in him. And I think everything that you mentioned up front is an additional reason, or maybe the primary reason, and that's just the icing on top of the cake. So, kind of concerned all around with it, right? It's just a weird scenario where you have a prospect top tier quarterback who's supposed to be NFL ready slide so far down. And on top of all of that, he slid down to a team, the Cleveland Browns organization, which I would like to transition to here now. He slid to a team with where he's going to be the fifth quarterback, right? So if we look at that Cleveland Browns depth chart, and I think you have a screen that you can pop up,
Yeah, I can share it real quick for you.
we have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson, and then Dylan Gabriel, who they actually drafted in what, the third round? Um,
Yeah, so I mean, he wasn't even the first quarterback drafted
right,
by the Browns in
right,
the draft. They picked Dylan Gabriel ahead of him, which just kind of shows you that they weren't even considering him their top choice in the draft.
right. Yeah.
So as far as how that bodes for, is he going to start this year? I think the question is really, is he going to make the team this year?
Yeah.
Because there's five quarterbacks in that backfield, and he's number five right now. So he's really going to have to show up and perform
Mm-hmm.
in order to make the team. Now, do I think that they're going to keep him on the team? Yes, absolutely I do, because I think it's actually good for Cleveland and their fan base to have someone to root for, and it also brings a whole lot of media attention to them, whether that's good or bad. It's going to be more people tuning into the games to watch, to potentially see Shedeur Sanders playing. But anyway, here is the depth chart, Cody, if you want to break it down a little bit.
Yeah, no. So I think you made some good points. I want to circle back to those later in this conversation because I think I want to kind of broaden our scope and talk more about the Browns organization as a whole, not just Shador. But if we look at this depth chart, Shador's joining a really QB heavy roster. We have some we have some concerns with Deshaun Watson even coming back this year. Joe Flacco, who knows, safety blanket, but the team is trying to work with some of the pieces here, right? We have Jerry Judy. Let's think about some of the weapons that the quarterback has real quick on the offensive side. We got Jerry Judy, Cedric Tillman, and Deontay Johnson, who they just acquired just a couple days ago, and then David Njoku. I think it's a decent middle of the pack room there. I think Jerry Judy really blew up last year towards the second half, which I think was primarily due to Jameis Winston. But
Yep.
nothing's crazy good here when it comes to the wide receiver core. I know that they pick up Judkins from Ohio State, I believe, who should be a little bit more dynamic than Jerome Ford, but the offense looks like
Middle of the
it's gonna
pack, if
struggle.
you
It's
ask
gonna
me.
struggle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in typical Cleveland Browns way. So let's do this, right? Let's just play devil's advocate real quick. If Dylan Gabriel or Shador are the starting quarterbacks at the start of this year, and we look at this roster here, do we have any confidence that they're able to stay alive and be let's even think about fantasy here, be fantasy relevant with this team?
No, I don't think so. And I
Flat
think
out.
you're going to end up with another top five pick next year if you were to
Mm.
put one of those two guys in the starting lineup. Just because some people say that they are NFL ready. I just don't think that it's going to be good for their confidence to throw them in there on day one and hand them over with this lineup, right? And the one thing that isn't shown on this depth chart is the offensive line, which really struggled last year. We looked this up yesterday. They were 20th in the NFL
Yeah.
as far as, I want to say, block win rate, and that's just not good enough. You need a quarterback in there that they can learn from and not be thrown into the fire right away if you want to at least give them the chance to succeed. So I would not feel confident. I mean, I'm not even confident with any of the first three guys there. Obviously, Watson's going to be out until maybe half the year with his ACL retorn and re-recovering, right? Flacco's 100 years old, and then Kenny Pickett has been thrown from team to team the last few years, and
Yeah.
nobody feels comfortable starting him. So it's still a little bit of mess. Yes, they've brought in two new weapons with Deontay Johnson and Quinshawn Judkins, but I mean, that's that's just pieces, right? They don't have the full puzzle right now. They just have pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think from a fantasy perspective, and the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of the sports card investing impact comes from fantasy when the football season starts. Hype is a huge machine, and that generally comes from a big game, big performances where teams are winning and they're trending in the right direction. When a team is middle of the pack or suffering, even with name power, those players generally trend in the downwards side, and that's not what you want to be targeting here. So I think John, you had mentioned as well, talking about Shedeur Sanders' position as a quarterback. Fifth round quarterbacks have never been super successful or successful in the league at all, right? So, yeah, you have it here. Go through the fifth round quarterbacks that
Yeah, so
have come out.
here are the most recent fifth round
Oh, the
quarterbacks. You have
second
Spencer
one.
Rattler last year, who went 0-6 as a starter. That's not
Yeah,
great. Sam Howell, that's Cody's guy, right? Has gone 5-13.
yep.
Is currently the third quarterback in Minnesota. I think I'm not even sure.
We're gonna say number
You
two
have
because I
Mike.
love him.
Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Cody. You have Mike White and the Dallas Cowboys,
Yeah,
2-5 as a starter. He hopped around with the Jets. Nathan Peterman. I mean, it's a bunch of guys that you don't really care. There hasn't been a whole lot of success. And if you
yeah,
scroll back up, Mel Kipper right here said in the last 30 years, quarterbacks drafted in the fifth round are 0-43 at becoming starters in the NFL. That is not good if you're Shedeur Sanders right there.
yeah.
Now, I understand that he probably has a heck of a lot more talent than a lot of the guys who have been drafted in the fifth round in previous years, the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an important stat line. You got to understand he was drafted in the fifth round for a reason. Whether it's his capability or it's his baggage, I don't really know. But
Right.
the odds are not in his favor when you look at these statistics here.
Yeah, yeah. I think these are. I think you hit. I think a lot of people in the comments potentially will argue with that last point, right? Shador it wasn't supposed to be a fifth round quarterback, and maybe that's the differentiating factor between that comparison, right? Shador should have been a first, second rounder. All those guys that you just mentioned are highly likely supposed to be a fifth round quarterback. So maybe that's the argument. So, only time will tell. But it could be like the Madden curse, right? You get on the cover of Madden and you just continue to suck moving forward. So
Hey,
what else do you got
there's
here?
always a Tom Brady out there. There's always a Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, let me
And that's
actually
what
take a
teams
sec.
are shooting for.
Let me take a second real quick because I want to go back to one of your previous points, right? We're talking about rookie quarterbacks who need time to develop, and they usually do that in the NFL by being behind a quarterback that knows the league, knows the system, knows how to pick apart film. And in the QB room right now, the only tenured players, super tenured player, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson, and Kenny Pickett. If you, regardless if it's Dylan or Shador, because I think one of those two players probably has the most potential now, other than those first three that I mentioned, those with the tenure in the NFL. Who would you want to be that kind of QB guidance for Dylan or Shador? Would it be Kenny, Joe, or Deshaun? Who would you want based off of
It's
Dylan
got to be,
and Shador's play style?
yeah, it's got to be Joe Flacco. I mean, first off, he's been around everywhere in the league. He's won a Super Bowl, right, with
Yep.
Baltimore.
With Baltimore. Yep.
Yeah, so he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's got the most experience. He's a pocket passer. He's not running anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Watson's a little bit more of a scrambler. Kenny Pickett's kind of a pocket passer as well, but I think Joe Flacco is probably going to have the best advice to give the guys. I don't know if I'd really want Deshaun Watson, who's probably not feeling so confident. He really hasn't been making the best life choices either.
Yeah.
Being the one that's mentoring these two guys that are coming up in the league, it's got to be Joe Flacco, if you ask me.
So the reason why I asked that question, right? This team cannot keep five quarterbacks on their team. Three. I think you can have three active quarterbacks, right? And then you can have one on IR, which you can swap with somebody else who's on your active roster. But one of them's got to go. One of them's got to go, and I think they could go to the practice squad and still be part of the Browns organization. But that's got to be a big decision, right? Let's say Deshaun goes on IR. Do you put Joe in
Mm-hmm.
there? Do you put Kenny? Who do you put in there? Who do you drop to the practice squad? Is it Shador? Does Shador go to practice squad, and then it's those the second, third, and fourth that you have on your screen? I'm not sure, but we don't have to go down
Well,
that path.
I mean, real quick, I'll tell you what my opinion is. I think that they're going to keep Kenny Pickett as the number two, and then they'll have Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders battle it out in the preseason for that third spot. And then whoever doesn't win that battle ends up on the practice squad. And then, honestly, if I was the Browns, I would be trying actively to get rid of Deshaun Watson. That was a failed attempt. Obviously, one of the worst trades in history. I'd be
Yeah,
trying to
it's
just
awful.
sell it, sell him for a penny on the dollar at this point, and get rid of that contract and try and get something in return because he's clearly not the future of the Browns
Yeah,
at this
that was
point.
a terrible trade.
Yep.
But let's hop over to that Shedeur Sanders career stats, and then I want to ask you kind of a final question so that we can wrap up this episode. So, what do you want to share from this screen here?
Yeah, so this just kind of shows you the 4 years of Shedeur Sanders' career stats. Crazy accuracy. So if you focus on the completion percentage, it just got better and better with finally 74%. That's completing almost 3 out of 4 passes, which is insane. I want to say that's the highest completion percentage in FBS history. And an interception or a touchdown to interception ratio of 9-1 is what I was reading. So if you look at some of the stats he has here, he's holding the single season completion record for a lot of different things. Now, I understand, again, this is Colorado. They haven't had a whole lot of quarterbacks come out of there. But he did this behind a terrible offensive line in Colorado. So the fact that he was able to maintain that completion percentage under pressure is extremely impressive to me. And these are just kind of these were statistics that back up some of that first round hype, and that's why to me it's crazy that he went so low. I mean, look at some of this stuff down here. 156 career QBR. That's insane.
That's great.
Ranks eighth among quarterbacks with at least 3,000 or 13,000 passes. So nothing but good stuff when you look at his stats. I get it. He's not really a rushing quarterback. He can scramble if he has to. He's not super fast. I think I actually I might not have pulled it up, but his 40-yard dash time is like
Wasn't it like four 7,
seconds, and
4.7,
I think
right?
it's like 4.6, yeah, 4.67, and then his dad was 4.27.
Yeah.
So like nowhere near as fast as his dad, but still a good, accurate pinpoint passing quarterback.
Yeah.
That's all I was going to share on this one.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's all great information. I think if you were to even look at Dylan Gabriel, he's a little bit more. He's similar when it comes to the stat sheet. I know that he has positive rushing yards, which I found out Shedeur Sanders ended last year with negative 50 rushing yards. So Dylan got him beat there. But the last
I
question
will
that I
say
go ahead.
college is a little different. When you take sacks, it counts as negative rushing yards. So the college stats are a little bit different than NFL stats.
Yeah, well, it still doesn't look good when you look at it from a
Doesn't
snapshot,
look
right?
good on the stat sheet. Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel could have lost yards by taking sacks as well, but he played for Oregon, so I think that that team is a little bit more well rounded. So, last
Yep.
question that I have for the two of us here. You know, we are a sports card channel. We have a ton of money invested in sports cards, whether that's football, baseball, basketball, hockey. You know, you name it. So, the final question that I have is there anybody from the Cleveland Brown organization that you would potentially be targeting or watching this year? And also, what would be the reason why you do choose to invest or not to invest? Or, and then a kind of a third part to it. If you were to buy any cards, at what point would you buy?
This feels like an interview, Cody. So no, I am not buying. Ask me, do I own any Browns cards? No, I do not. I
No.
do not
Okay.
own any Browns cards at all whatsoever. Do not want any. If I was to buy one, and it would not be an offensive player, it would be Myles Garrett
The
down
man,
here. He is, a sure thing Hall of Famer, and I
for sure.
think that his cards are the only ones that are going to retain value
Mm-hmm.
as time goes on. And why I say that is you really, when you're looking at sports cards, you want players that have potential to become Hall of Famers, and not just Hall of Famers. You want some of the best ever, right? The only person who really falls under that category for me is Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
The other quarterbacks, yes, you can do prospecting and hope that you find a diamond in the rough. But
Right.
the problem is with the name value of Shedeur Sanders, when his cards do eventually hit the market, he's going to be way, way, way up there in value. It's going to be overpriced to where he's going to be in the future. So even if he does succeed immensely, wins a Super Bowl, whatever, usually when those rookie cards come in, they are really, really high. So I don't think that it's really going to ever increase unless he becomes a multi Super Bowl winner. In that case, maybe, but I just don't see that happening. And I've been burned way too many times by the Trevor Lawrence, the Zach Wilsons. You name that person who didn't meet expectation and put them in there, and I feel like that could be one of them. So no, I wouldn't put my money into any actually really any of the quarterbacks drafted in the 2025 draft.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good broad stroke that you had there at the end. Um, and I think you're right with the value. I would agree with you pretty much on all fronts, right? If you've been watching our channel, I love Myles Garrett. I submit a lot of Myles Garrett already, from rookie cards to veteran, parallels. So Myles Garrett is the only guy that I'm going to continue to target. I think the benefit, John, I think you mentioned it yesterday. One of the benefits of having Shedeur in this facility, especially with this pretty fierce QB battle, is there's going to be a lot of media. So if, from any perspective on impact to Myles Garrett currently, it's just going to bring more people to understand the Browns organization and what he does, Myles Garrett does, for the NFL as a whole, not just the Cleveland Browns. So I'm not going to be investing in any quarterbacks because I also concur with you. I think Shedeur is going to be super, super high dollar value. He's going to be worth more than Dylan Gabriel, even though Dylan Gabriel got drafted before him on the Cleveland Browns organization. And I think only time will deteriorate that value unless Shedeur just has an amazing OTA or an amazing camp, shows off in OTAs, comes out firing in preseason, and somehow gets the starting job over the other four quarterbacks in that room. So from an investment standpoint, I'm staying clear away. John's had a lot of failures. I've had a lot of failures with first-round quarterbacks. But with fifth-round quarterbacks, I've had some failures because I got $2,000 worth of Sam Howell cards that are just collecting dust right now. So,
but those are nice Sam Howell cards, though.
Hey, JJ may not be the starter there. Sam Howell might be the guy, and Justin Jefferson makes any quarterback look good. So my fingers are crossed. I'm holding, bro. I'm holding.
I think that Shedeur would have to have a Jaden Daniels type rookie season in order for his cards to go up, and it's
Right.
just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, the
Unfortunately, I think that's
Commanders
where it
did
is.
so much in the offseason, including the coaching scheme there that made Jaden Daniels successful. He's a great athlete, but I honestly think that organization is more well-rounded than the Browns, and I think it's by a long shot. This was Cardboard Cutback number 11. So number 2 for the year. I love this content. I know John enjoys this content as well. Just talking back and forth about our favorite sport, that is football. Fantasy football is coming up. It's right around the corner, especially with the draft already coming and going. So we're super excited. I threw out some crazy ideas to John today about potentially reviewing all of the NFL teams before the preseason starts to really just dive into not only their top tier or highest prospect from this draft, but also from a current team composition. So I don't know. If you guys are interested in this content, let us know. Let us know if you want us to go through the other teams in the NFL, or if you have any other recommendations that you want to hear John and I bicker about. Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you guys.
It's gonna take some resounding support for us to do that, I will say.
I think it's three of these per week up until the first preseason game in order to achieve that. So
it's gonna take more than 5 likes in order for us to do that, I think.
I'll get Grandma and everyone to go ahead and like it. So nevertheless, we missed our target of being under 20 minutes, so we're gonna wrap this up. John, any final words for the viewers or viewer?
If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dad, for watching this far. But no, guys, if you do want us to talk about something in particular, please let us know in the comments. Throw us that like. Will it work? There it is.
Hey.
And subscribe to the channel.
We got our first like.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah, there it is.
We'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining us on Cardboard Cutback number 11. We will see you for number 12 probably in a week. Take care.